Everyone claims to love period dramas, but most only watch the same five: Downton Abbey, Pride and Prejudice, and whichever Austen got remade last month. The truth? Some of the best ones slipped right under the radar. They had powerhouse actors, juicy plots, and jaw-dropping costumes, yet almost no one remembers them. Want to know which overlooked miniseries deserve a second life? Let's dig up 15 forgotten gems hiding in plain sight. The Devil's Mistress, 2017. Let's start with something that isn't all lace gloves and polite conversations. The Devil's Mistress dropped viewers into the English Civil War, a time when England was ripping itself apart. Forget tea sets. This was blood, betrayal, and an uncertain future. Andrea Riseborough plays Angelica Fanshawe, a woman who transforms from country housewife to political survivor in Cromwell's camp. She's grieving, she's ambitious, and she's stuck in a world where every choice is dangerous. What makes this mini so riveting is how it shows personal lives getting crushed under national chaos. Oliver Cromwell shows up, played with unsettling conviction by Dominic West, and suddenly Angelica is orbiting history itself. Friends become enemies. Husbands vanish. Allegiances shift faster than you can blink. Instead of painting her as a tragic victim or a power-hungry schemer, the series gives her grit. She adapts, claws her way forward, and pays the price at every step. Visually, it's stripped down compared to the glossy Austens. The mud looks real, the costumes feel lived in, and the battles remind you just how raw this period was. And yet, it got almost no fanfare. Maybe because it wasn't cozy enough for Sunday evenings. Maybe because viewers weren't ready for a heroine who didn't fit the usual prim and proper mold. Either way, it's one of those lost gems that proves period drama doesn't always have to be soft focus and candlelight. The Tenant of Wildfell Hall, 1996. Everyone knows Jane Eyre and Wuthering Heights, but what about Anne Bronte's scandalous little grenade? The Tenant of Wildfell Hall was bold for its time, and the 1996 BBC adaptation captured every ounce of that nerve. Tara Fitzgerald plays Helen Graham, the mysterious widow who shocks the neighborhood by moving into a crumbling mansion with her young son. Immediately, the gossip mill goes into overdrive. The brilliance is in how the story unfolds. Through Gilbert Markham, played by Toby Stephens, we peel back Helen's past. And it's not pretty. She's been through a marriage that was less romantic ideal and more living nightmare, and the flashbacks don't hold back. This wasn't a damsel waiting to be rescued. Helen took her life into her own hands, no matter how society sneered at her for it. That independence alone was radical, and this adaptation doesn't sand off the rough edges. The mood is damp, shadowy, and relentless, with Yorkshire landscapes that look like they've been soaking in secrets for centuries. The supporting cast, including Rupert Graves, brings extra bite to the mix, ensuring the whole thing never feels too stagey. So why did it slip into obscurity? Maybe because it dared to show marriage as suffocating rather than dreamy. Maybe because Anne Bronte never had the same cultural fan club as her sisters. Either way, this mini is both haunting and revolutionary. Ignore it, and you're missing one of the sharpest period dramas ever aired. The Mill on the Floss, 1997. Some stories don't end with a neat bow, and The Mill on the Floss is one of them. George Eliot's tale of the Tulliver siblings, Maggie and Tom, isn't just about family squabbles. It's about loyalty, betrayal, and the slow erosion of hope. The 1997 TV adaptation deserves way more attention, not least because it gave us Emily Watson as Maggie, back when she was still breaking out as one of the sharpest actors of her generation. Maggie is clever, imaginative, and desperate to carve a life outside the tiny cage of provincial respectability. Tom, played by Ifan Meredith, is the complete opposite, stubborn, conservative, obsessed with duty. Their clashes are volcanic, and what makes the story bite is how real it all feels. Anyone with siblings knows that line between love and fury, and Eliot leans into it with painful honesty. Visually, the production leans earthy rather than polished. Muddy riverbanks, cramped interiors, and windswept fields make it feel grounded. Supporting turns by James Frain and Bernard Hill deepen the story, reminding you that in Eliot's world, everyone is compromised, no one is untouched by disappointment. So why is this one forgotten? Probably because it's not cozy. There are no glittering ballrooms or matchmaking plots to soften the blow. Instead, it's a tragedy about people trapped by circumstance, and Maggie's final arc is as haunting as anything BBC ever aired. If you like your period dramas bittersweet, this is a neglected masterpiece waiting to be rediscovered. Madame Bovary 2000. Now here's a miniseries that went all in on misery and somehow made it gorgeous. Madame Bovary has been adapted a dozen times, but the 2000 BBC version with Frances O'Connor nailed the story's bleak brilliance. Forget the glamour of some film versions. This one stayed faithful to Flaubert's merciless portrait of a woman who wanted more than wallpaper and small-town gossip. Emma Bovary, played with breathtaking rawness by O'Connor, is married to Charles Hugh Bonneville, a sweet but utterly uninspiring country doctor. He's content with routine. She's choking on it. So she starts reaching for romance, adventure, and excitement wherever she can find it, and the results are disastrous. The beauty of this adaptation is how it shows Emma's hunger without softening the consequences. Every decision pulls her deeper into a spiral she can't escape. The supporting cast reads like a who's who of British TV: Eileen Atkins, Hugh Dancy, Trevor Peacock, all slotting perfectly into Flaubert's world of hypocrisy and temptation. The costumes are lush without being cartoonish. The countryside looks stunning but isolating, and the pacing gives the story time to breathe. So why has no one heard of it? Maybe because it doesn't let you off the hook. It's not romance, it's corrosion. And that honesty makes it unforgettable. For anyone tired of syrupy costume dramas, this is a must-watch. The Mayor of Casterbridge, 2003. Thomas Hardy didn't believe in happy endings, and The Mayor of Casterbridge proves it. The 2003 adaptation starring Ciarán Hinds is a masterclass in self-destruction. From the very first episode, when Michael Henchard drunkenly sells his wife and child at a country fair, you know you're not in for an uplifting ride. Years later, Henchard has sobered up, built a reputation, and become the respectable mayor of Casterbridge. But Hardy never lets the past stay buried. When his wife and daughter reappear, Henchard's carefully built world starts crumbling. Hinds plays him with volcanic energy, proud, reckless, and incapable of stepping aside when his own temper leads him into disaster. You can't root for him, but you can't look away either. What sets this mini apart is its refusal to sand down Hardy's sharp edges. Anna Massey brings elegance and restraint to Lucetta, while Polly Walker adds fire as a woman entangled in Henchard's chaos. The rural setting is as unforgiving as the story itself. Dusty fields, bleak skies, and a town where everyone knows your business. Why forgotten? Maybe because Hardy's brand of tragedy is a hard sell. It's not comfort viewing, and there's no tidy resolution. But as a study of pride, shame, and the cost of impulsive choices, it's brutal and brilliant. If you've only seen the sunnier side of period drama, this one will knock the air right out of you. The History of Tom Jones, A Foundling, 1997. Not every period drama has to be doom and gloom, and Tom Jones proved it. Adapted from Henry Fielding's rollicking 18th century novel, this 4-part miniseries is bawdy, chaotic, and full of energy. Max Beasley takes the lead as Tom, a charming rogue whose adventures span taverns, highways, and drawing rooms, leaving a trail of admirers and enemies in his wake. Unlike the more mannered Austens, Tom Jones embraces chaos. There are duels, mistaken identities, and more scandal than half the novels of the era combined. Samantha Morton plays Sophia Western with grace and steel, making her much more than just Tom's love interest, and Brian Blessed shows up, booming his way through the role of Squire Western with the kind of gusto only he could bring. The production design leans colorful and kinetic rather than prim and proper. It's not afraid to laugh at its characters' vanity and foolishness, which makes it stand out in a genre often accused of being stuffy. Each episode barrels forward with momentum, giving you just enough time to breathe before the next misadventure. So why isn't this better remembered? Maybe because BBC wasn't sure how to market something that looked historical but felt like satire. Maybe because Fielding's wild humor isn't everyone's cup of tea. But for those willing to dive in, it's one of the most fun and irreverent period dramas ever made. Daniel Deronda, 2002. If you've ever thought period dramas stick too closely to love triangles and tea parties, Daniel Deronda is your antidote. Adapted from George Eliot's last novel, this 4-part miniseries is ambitious, layered, and far bolder than most costume dramas dared to be. Hugh Dancy plays Daniel, a young man raised as an English gentleman who discovers his true identity is more complicated. Running parallel to his journey is Gwendolen Harleth, played by Romola Garai in one of her most captivating performances. Gwendolen is proud, reckless, and desperate for freedom, which leads her into a marriage that's basically a gilded cage. Watching her unravel is both painful and mesmerizing, and Gary nails every flicker of regret and resilience. The brilliance here is in the dual narratives. Daniel's storyline dives into themes of heritage and belonging, exploring Jewish identity in a way no other mainstream Victorian adaptation ever really touched. Meanwhile, Gwendolen's arc is all about the suffocating weight of bad choices and the consequences that refuse to go away. Together, they create a drama that feels as epic as a novel, but intimate in its character work. Visually, it's lush, grand estates, candlelit interiors, and sweeping outdoor shots that balance beauty with unease. The supporting cast, including Hugh Bonneville and Jodie May, adds depth to the already complex web of relationships. So why is it overlooked? Probably because it didn't fit the usual Austen-shaped mold. It wasn't light, it wasn't romantic in the conventional sense, and it asked audiences to wrestle with bigger questions than most period dramas dared, which is exactly why it deserves more recognition now. The Pickwick Papers, 1985. Dickens isn't usually associated with comedy, but The Pickwick Papers proves he could do slapstick with the best of them. This 12-part adaptation takes his first novel, a chaotic travelogue full of mishaps, and leans into its absurdity. Paul Greenwood plays the bumbling Mr. Pickwick, who, along with his companions, manages to stumble into fights, court cases, and the kind of lodging disasters you'd expect from a Dickensian road trip. What makes it sing is the tone. Instead of draping everything in gloomy gravitas, the series plays up the humor. Courtroom scenes teeter on farce, misunderstandings escalate into disasters, and Pickwick himself is so well-meaning yet clueless that you can't help rooting for him. Narration ties it all together, framing it like a diary of misadventures, which gives the episodes a lightness that's rare for Dickens adaptations. The production design is charmingly detailed, stagecoaches rattling down dirt roads, bustling inns with questionable landlords, and the looming sense that modernity is about to sweep this world away. It's nostalgia wrapped in comedy, and it works. So, why forgotten? Maybe because viewers expect Dickens to be heavy, not funny. Maybe because it didn't have the star wattage of later BBC hits. But this one is proof that Dickens wasn't all orphans and tragedy. He could also deliver ridiculous travel mishaps with a wink. If you've never seen Dickens played for laughs, this is the hidden gem you need. The Barchester Chronicles, 1982. If you think church politics sound dull, the Barchester Chronicles will change your mind. Based on Anthony Trollope's novels, this 7-part mini turns the sleepy world of cathedral towns into a battlefield of ambition, vanity, and quiet backstabbing. Donald Pleasance plays Reverend Septimus Harding, a mild man caught in the crossfire of reform, scandal, and gossip. But the real scene stealer? A young Alan Rickman in one of his first major roles, oozing menace as Obadiah Slope, the ambitious chaplain who stirs up chaos wherever he goes. Rickman's performance is magnetic, venomous, yet oddly compelling, the kind of villain you love to hate. Opposite him, Geraldine McEwen is equally formidable as the bishop's wife, pulling strings with terrifying precision. What makes it brilliant is how small the stakes are on paper, yet how enormous they feel on screen. We're talking about disputes over church appointments and property rights, but the series plays them like life and death struggles, and somehow it works. Nigel Hawthorne's righteous indignation alone could power a dozen dramas. The tone is part comedy of manners, part political drama. Every line is sharp, every performance perfectly pitched. It's proof that Trollope, often overshadowed by Dickens, could be just as biting in dissecting pride, vanity, and the way ambition warps people. Why isn't it better remembered? Probably because it's slower, quieter, and focused on clergy instead of romance. But that's what makes it stand out. It's witty, vicious, and endlessly watchable. And honestly, seeing Rickman in one of his earliest villain roles is worth the price of admission alone. The Jewel in the Crown, 1984. If Downton Abbey was period drama comfort food, The Jewel in the Crown was a feast people forgot to show up for. This 14-part Granada television epic tackled the final years of the British Raj with ambition and scale that put most costume dramas to shame. Art Malik, Geraldine James, Charles Dance. The cast list alone is staggering. The story stretches from the late 1930s into the end of World War II, weaving together romance, betrayal, and political collapse. At its heart is the relationship between Daphne Manners, a young Englishwoman, and Hari Kumar, an Indian man educated in Britain, but treated as an outsider in both worlds. Their love collides with the harsh realities of empire, prejudice, and power. What makes it unforgettable is the scope. Unlike most British period dramas, which rarely step outside rural estates, this one sprawls across India, capturing the tensions of a crumbling empire. The visuals are stunning: sunlit courtyards, bustling streets, and sweeping landscapes that contrast with the claustrophobia of colonial politics. The performances are equally rich. Charles Dance delivers icy authority, Art Malik is magnetic as Harry, and Geraldine James gives one of her most layered turns as Sarah Layton, a woman trying to navigate a system stacked against her. So, why is it overlooked? Because it was overshadowed by Brideshead Revisited around the same time. But if you want a period drama with epic sweep and razor-sharp politics, The Jewel in the Crown is a masterpiece hiding in plain sight. So, there you have it. 15 period drama minis that deserved the spotlight but got buried instead. They weren't cozy Sunday fillers. They were sharp, daring, and sometimes downright brutal. Which of these forgotten gems have you seen? Which ones are you adding to your watch list? Drop your favorites in the comments, hit subscribe if you love digging into overlooked classics, and remember, sometimes the best stories are the ones history almost forgot.